Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fake Love and Flying Monkeys podcast. My name's Nova Gibson and I am your host. My area of expertise is in supporting victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse and other toxic relationships. I'm the principal counsellor at Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling Service, and I'm also the author of Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything from the initial pink cloud you find yourself on at the start through to the horrific discard and the powerful trauma bond that keeps you hooked. So take your imaginary seat on the roller coaster that is narcissistic abuse, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. Today, this episode is something very close to my heart. Not many of you will know, or maybe you do, that I actually have 6 children. And out of that 6 children, I have 5 boys. And 2 of my boys are gay. And I worry as a mum, but like any mum does, I guess, but I also worry for them because of what I do and the lack of support for the gay community when it comes to domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, coercive control. Now, I have a very special guest today. He is a young gay man who has very kindly offered to talk about his abuse and what his thoughts are on how we can help people like him, other young gay men and other young gay women to feel they can seek support, and also of course, to try and make sure there are the support services out there for people who are experiencing domestic violence, narcissistic abuse in the gay community. So I'm very, very grateful to have with us today David. Thank you so much for joining us here, David.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nova.
My pleasure. Now, David, tell us your story. What happened to you? How did it all begin when you found yourself in a relationship which you later found out was with a toxic partner, this person who was your abuser? Tell us your story, David.
Sure. I guess it was a 2-year relationship that started very quickly. We met through an app, and I guess you never see the signs at first. Narcissists can be very charming from the beginning, and we definitely went through the honeymoon phase where there were lots of gifts. There was a lot of flattery, comments like, "You compliment me perfectly. I love you so much, babe." Very, very sentimental moments. But I guess as time went on, they just show their true nature. And there were, I would describe it as maybe a death of 1,000 cuts after the idealization phase has ended, and they have you in their control, then they kind of just chip away at you.
Yeah. So would you say that you were love bombed? Did it all happen really, really quickly?
Yeah, I think it did start very quickly, and I was quite overwhelmed by how quickly it started.
Okay. So, David, when did you notice that things started to change, or he started acting differently? He wasn't, treating you with the same respect that the love bombing essentially had ended.
Yeah, I guess it didn't happen straight away. It was kind of like a gradual disconnection, and just the frequency of the snarky remarks, or disrespect and devaluation would just it would become more frequent, more common, more severe, more cutting, I think. Yeah.
And did you realize at the time that this, I guess, was not normal, or did you do what many victims of domestic violence, narcissistic abuse do, and come up with ways of trying to understand the confusing change?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely gave him the benefit of the doubt way too many times. Obviously, yeah, there were times where I called it out and I'm like, this is unacceptable. You can't speak to me this way. But a lot of the time I would just put it down to him not getting enough sleep or not eating properly or having a bad day at work. His mum would say that if he was hungry or tired, he could be a real pill. And I just thought that's their nature,
Yeah.
I made so many excuses for it.
Yeah, you're coming up with all of these ways to make the abuse not as bad as it is, to survive it. To survive the abuse you don't even know is abuse at the time.
Mm.
Yeah. So, David, tell us, what are the signs for everyone out there, but particularly everyone out there in the gay community, where it might be a little different. The strategies that the narcissist uses, no matter what sort of relationship you're in, they are universal. But from your experience, tell everyone what you believe are the signs that you may be dating a narcissist.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the signs to look out for are, I guess, just a lack of empathy or a lack of compassion, an inability to kind of see things from other people's perspective. They're very self-serving and superficial. You can probably tell if the relationship isn't equitable, like both people aren't giving the same amount of effort or one person's taking a lot more than they're giving. Also, they can be very secretive. So, they might, hold their phone very closely to their face or hide notifications from whatever dating apps that they've downloaded. Or they may try and make you jealous by telling you about other people in their life that have, flirted with them or, approached them at work. Or just, yeah, if you notice that they're almost bullying you, kind of like cutting away at your passions and your interests and appearance. Sometimes, mine kind of went for a whole range of things. But yeah.
Would you say that everything that he tried to strip away from you, when we call it the devaluation started, which is inevitable with a narcissist, would you say that all of those things that he tried to strip away were things that he actually said he loved about you in the beginning?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, even my voice, at the beginning of the relationship, he said something about my singing voice, being able to do a good impression of Elvis Presley or something like that. And then at the end of the relationship, he couldn't stand my voice. If I tried to sing in the car, he would turn the volume of the radio up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The reason I brought that up was because it's so common, and it creates mass confusion for the victim when they tell you all the things they love about you, when they're love bombing you. And then later on, when they're devaluing you, they're the things that irritate them and they can't stand. So once again, it's just so confusing. You're just kept in a massive state of confusion all the time. So, David, tell us about, this is a question that I have, I guess, just me specifically. I am aware, as you would be, that homophobia is still an issue today. I don't care what anyone says. There are real stereotypes about the gay community, and I believe that these stereotypes, number one, prevent gay people from coming forward because of the stereotypes, and also stopping them from getting support because there is none, or very little. How do you think homophobia is impacting on people in the gay community, victims of this insidious type of abuse? How do you think it impacts on their ability to leave and get help?
Yeah, I think that's a really important topic, and it does play a big role in why victims or survivors may not come forward. I think obviously the stereotype, or the format that we are, I guess, most familiar with when it comes to domestic violence is the aggressive, bigger straight man preying on the vulnerable, more delicate woman. But that stereotype, it doesn't really translate to same-sex couples. And
that's right.
Yeah, we just don't have a framework really to compare it to. There's not a services, I guess, specifically available to LGBTQ couples going through this.
Yeah, I think that what you said makes so much sense, in that domestic violence still today is really seen as just an issue that heterosexuals face. So if that's the case, which I believe it is for the most part, then that's where all the research is going to be, isn't it? So, domestic violence has no gender. Anyone can be the victim of domestic violence. So, as you said, there's no framework, is there? And if societal stereotypes suggest that only a woman can be a victim, and only a woman can be a victim by a man, then what does that say when there's two men in a relationship and one of those is a victim? Because there is always a power imbalance in these domestic violent, narcissistic, abusive relationships. What does it say when there's two men and two women who, essentially society thinks should be on the same playing field? You should be able to defend yourself. It really has got to be a huge roadblock.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I remember as early as maybe middle school, someone in my class talking about their gay uncles, and the kids in the class, they just wanted to know who's the man and who's the woman in the relationship, and that's,
wow.
I think that's, how a lot of, I don't know, we're trying to avoid that kind of comparison, and understand that, it's so nuanced with same-sex couples. We don't fit that template, but
yes,
it can be much harder to see a power imbalance. Sometimes the victim is the 6-foot beefcake, and
yes,
the aggressor is the little chihuahua. But
yeah. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I talk about this in my book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. I talk about James's experience, a young gay man like yourself, but James, he had suffered terribly as a child with a very, very homophobic father. So no one knew he was gay. He was so scared to tell people because of, the conditioning from his father. But he was in a relationship where the victim, just like you said, he was like this 6 foot burly guy, 6 foot something burly guy, and his abuser was a very slight, short man. And the abuse he endured, the narcissistic abuse, the coercive control, was horrific. But he just felt like he'd be the laughing stock if he, went and reported the abuse or sought help, when there's such a difference in size and these stereotypes within society. You're a man, go and sort it out for yourself, and a big bloke like you, and you're telling us this little bloke, it's kind of different but the same as, I guess, a heterosexual man coming forward to say a teeny tiny little woman has abused him, and really having that underlying fear that no one will believe him.
Exactly. Yeah, a fear of not being believed is definitely one of the factors that prevents people from coming forward and reporting it, and especially when it's emotional abuse or coercive control. It doesn't leave bruises. So it's very hard to kind of explain it without physical evidence, I guess.
Yes.
It becomes your word against theirs.
Yeah. I mean, psychological abuse, narcissistic abuse is not gender specific. Women do just as much damage and destroy men's lives in the same capacity that a man destroys a woman with narcissistic abuse. So, it's got to be very, very difficult to articulate the abuse. If psychological abuse is underreported, which it is, because people, especially men, fear coming forward when there's no bruises, who's going to believe me? And it's underreported, then it's got to be doubly, triply hard for a man to come forward and report the psychological torture, abuse from another man or from a woman.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to know your thoughts, David, on, I was talking about James earlier. James is the young gay man I talk about, and his experience in my book, Fake Love. Now, as I said, James had an extremely abusive childhood and a very horrible homophobic father. And of course, previous trauma, core wounds, as it does much of the time, led him to be in a relationship that was familiar, where he wasn't getting his needs met, and love and abuse go hand in hand. He found himself with a very toxic narcissist. Now, because no one else knew that he was gay, he kept this secret so secure, because he was terrified of what his father would do, how he would react, knowing he had a gay son. This was his big secret. And because narcissists go for the chinks in your armor, they go for the things that will hurt you the most. He was so scared that his abuser would out him. And of course, when he was being punished or threatened, his abuser would say, I'm going to tell everyone, one phone call and your secret is out. Now, when after a particularly horrific round of abuse, his abuser smeared him, just absolutely destroyed his credibility and his name, his reputation within the gay community. This was the only family he had. He loved his community, and he had so many wonderful friends, but as what happens with narcissistic abuse, people believe the manipulative lies, and the smear campaign nearly destroyed him because that was the only community he had. What are your thoughts on that? And have you heard about this happening to other people, maybe yourself?
I definitely understand the importance of community. As queer people, it's RuPaul says we choose our own family, but I think having a supportive network, a support system of people that share your life experiences and your sexuality and interests, just as a sounding board and circle, it's invaluable, I guess. And I can definitely understand a fear of kind of being disconnected or isolated.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the narcissist's number one weapons, which it pushes their victim closer to their abuser because they've got no one else.
Exactly. I think we kind of assume it's normal when you enter a relationship that you do kind of prioritize them above other people, and make time for them, spend quality time with them. But the longer you're in a relationship, sometimes the smaller your friendship circle becomes, and you do become more dependent or reliant on the narcissist. But I think it's so important to maintain, partners can come and go, but, friends you'd like to think of forever. It's so important to, keep that network in place, regardless of whether you're single or in a relationship.
Absolutely. That community is so important, especially because of, what's happened in the past, the horrific discrimination and just all of that historical discrimination and societal misconceptions. So this is something I have many gay clients come to see me who have been abused by a narcissist, men and women. And one thing that kind of resonated with me, and once again, I wanted your thoughts on it, was that, well, for me, I took the view that people in the gay community have fought so hard against discrimination for so long. You are a normal couple. You're just a normal couple, and that's what you want to be recognized. But, it's only relatively new that, unfortunately, that, gay people can't even get married. So when people are telling me that they can't come forward, sometimes I'm picking up from that there's also this belief or value that because we've fought so hard to, just be recognized as a normal, loving couple, that you come forward and start talking about domestic violence and all these other things that really not specific to any relationship type, but if you come forward and start talking about all these things that are wrong in our relationships, then that kind of might undo all that work. It basically might reflect badly on the community.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think our LGBTQ relationships, I think they do progress on a different timeline to heterosexual relationships. And obviously, yeah, marriage only became a possibility here very recently. And it was only in 1997 that I guess homosexuality was decriminalized, or sodomy laws were repealed. But
yeah,
I think without visible representations of healthy same-sex relationships, we kind of don't, or even like examples of unhealthy ones, we don't really know how to chart these waters, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, have you heard of a concept called trauma bonding?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that very powerful attachment that a victim has to their abuser. The reason I bring this up, and I'm glad you're aware of it, is because my belief is that because of these stigmas and stereotypes that still exist, it's harder, or people there's just not enough education and awareness out there. It's harder for people to believe that someone we're in a relationship, a same-sex relationship, where society deems you as being on the same playing field. There's no power imbalance there. It's mutual abuse, which of course it's not. Then you should just be able to get up and leave.
Yes.
If it's if this is not, in these people's eyes, a normal relationship because of those stereotypes, and you're on the same playing field, why can't you just leave? And of course, you and I know that a trauma bond, that powerful attachment, flies in the face of logic, and you crave someone, you're addicted to someone who on a logical level is abusing you, but you just can't seem to stay away, or you keep going back. So that means that anyone, gay people who experience narcissistic abuse, become trauma bonded too. But they've got, it seems, even less chance of breaking that trauma bond because of those stereotypes.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely understand what it's like to be trauma bonded, and kind of going through that cycle of positive reinforcement, then devaluation, and it just, it's on a cycle. You experience something bad, they kind of do something small to make up for it, and you assume that tomorrow's going to be better, or things will go back to normal.
Yeah, they wound you,
yeah.
And then because of the conditioning, they become the only one who can heal the wound that they created, and they throw you breadcrumbs, which is just enough to make that wound feel less bad. And this keeps you hanging in there. And of course, you're always thinking you're going to get that person back that they were.
Yeah. But you really do see the mask, come off eventually, and you have to understand that the person you saw at the start was a performance, a presentation of their best self, but yeah.
David, could you tell everyone a little bit about the inevitable discard with your abuser?
Yeah, of course. So after living together for 9 months and kind of trying to communicate my needs and solve the relationship problems, was very kind of swiftly kicked to the curb and encouraged to move out and move home. And I did. And after that, I've gone completely no contact. So at first, I just felt like I needed a little bit of space, but then as more time went on, I started to see things more objectively, and see things, for what they were, not through my rose-tinted glasses. And I realized that this person was actively trying to hurt me, and I shouldn't allow someone like that in my life. So, I have been able to reconnect with myself, rediscover my passions, and rebuild my support network, and integrate with my community. And I think that's the best thing is, suddenly having all this free time to pour into my passions and give my time, love, and attention to people that deserve it or
Yeah. And
get it.
how can I ask, how were your loved ones, the people in your community, I guess, when you were in the relationship and post discard? What was it like for them? How did they see things?
Yeah, I think a lot of my friends had assumed that my partner was maybe a bit introverted or socially anxious, because whenever I would bring him to events or functions, he would really keep to himself and not really engage with anyone. He would be on his phone waiting to leave the whole time. And that's just so far from the truth. Like,
He's being rude.
just being rude.
He's being rude and
Yeah.
trying to isolate you
Exactly.
and humiliate you.
Yeah, essentially. But family, look, they welcomed him in early on. We spent a lot of time with each other's families. I think that was one of the other reasons that I may not have left earlier, is just a sense of loyalty and responsibility to his family. They'd kind of asked me to, make sure he was eating properly and, look out for him and give him a hug on their behalf. And I think it's...
So he played the victim, would you say?
I don't know, but I definitely feel that, the sense of family and obligation kind of, prevented me from...
Yeah. So you were having it sounds like your empathy used against you. And of course,
totally.
he instilled that sense of obligation and guilt and managed your boundaries down over time. David, can I ask you about your rock bottom? What was the moment for you, do you think, when you couldn't understand what was happening and you just didn't think this could get any worse, and perhaps, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but perhaps you blamed yourself because that's what they condition you to do. Would you mind talking to us about what was you believe now was your rock bottom in this abusive domestic violent relationship?
Well, I mean, the final few weeks of the relationship were full of personal attacks, criticism, devaluation, humiliation. But I guess those first few weeks after the discard, I struggled with a bit of insomnia, loss of appetite, just, yeah, irritability and restlessness. But yeah, just like I guess, stuck in a rumination cycle. Was very hard to break out of. But yeah, I guess each month and each week, I went from counting the days to counting the weeks to counting the months, and the more time that passes, yeah, the more distant it feels, and like it happened to someone else almost.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
disconnecting from who I was last year.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to quickly say that that's so textbook, David, for the abuse to escalate right before the discard. They've got to make you hurt when the end comes. And of course, they've got to, that their desire is to get you to react to the escalation of abuse. So it looks like they had to leave you, and it kind of paves the way for them to transition into the new cycle with the new victim.
Mm.
Yeah. David, we were talking earlier about the tragic domestic violence loss of life of Jesse and Luke. Just absolutely horrific. Now, the reason I wanted to kind of just briefly talk about the loss of such a beautiful couple with you was I wanted to know your thoughts as a gay man in a domestic violence relationship. Now, I know it was different, and I can only go by what I read, and I've got to say alleged, because I know, there's still court processes coming up, but the alleged person engaged in terrible stalking, and allegedly went, was in his bedroom and allegedly, sending him messages. Stalking is torturous. You can't leave your home. Many the victims who've experienced this out there listening to this today will know it destroys you. So this was happening to Jesse, but he didn't get the support. It certainly doesn't sound like it to me. Now, why do you think that it could get to that extent of abuse, and the abuse he suffered prior to that tragedy, or the domestic violence tragedy? The abuse he suffered was horrific. What do you think might have been the reasons that impacted on his inability to either come forward and report it and keep fighting until he got justice, and or the lack of support for him? What do you think? We don't want this to happen again. We want people to come forward so this never happens again. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I didn't know Jesse or Luke personally, but we did share a few mutual friends. And from my understanding, he had spoken to his family and his friends months prior to the incident, warning them of Bolamar's stalking. So his family were aware, they knew who to look out for. But I suppose one of the reasons maybe it didn't escalate further, or he didn't take it higher, was, I think, because maybe LGBTQ people just have a general mistrust of the police. I think, especially in New South Wales, the police have a history of not really acting on hate crimes against the LGBTQ plus community. And I think well, it doesn't help, obviously, that Bo was a policeman, and if
Exactly.
you're going to the source to, who's
Exactly. That's an added thing, isn't
yeah,
it?
for
Yeah.
sure.
So Jesse would have been reporting to the alleged perpetrators' peers.
Yeah, and who's to say that they wouldn't, show solidarity with him and,
Protect him.
protect him.
Not to mention the fact that from what I read, there was some kind of brief encounter, which is, for anyone else, we would say big deal. You had a one-night stand. I don't know that that's what happened, but big deal. You're allowed to do that when you're an adult. But the reason I raised that in particular is because of all those things you and I have spoken about earlier. If you're still striving to be recognised as a normal, loving couple, you don't want anything to reflect badly on the community. Your relationship basically doesn't get the same respect as a heterosexual relationship. I would imagine that telling people that happened, especially being in the public eye, that would be something that would potentially be embarrassing, that you feel that people would judge you for.
Yeah, certainly. I think, it's always, something to consider, and, considering how it might reflect on you, and, what it attracts these kind of people.
Yeah. I just think there's so many reasons. That all kind of point the finger at why Jesse and every other gay victim, man or woman, of narcissistic abuse, domestic violence, doesn't feel they can come forward, or if they do, they won't be believed. Just all of these stigmas and stereotypes that prevent them from getting perhaps the same justice as you would, and the same support that you would if you're in a heterosexual couple. And this is what we need to change. We never want that to happen again. We want gay people to have exactly the same support, and feel they will be valued and believed as any other victim of domestic violence, because domestic violence has no gender, and the victims do not all fit in to one little box. So just quickly, David, talking about the mistrust that the LGBTQ plus community has with the police, particularly in New South Wales, you mentioned. I imagine that if you were to go to the powers that be, to the police, they would say differently. They would deny that. And what would you agree?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I'm bringing that up is because David is someone who is in that community and has experienced domestic violence. And anyone who's listening out there today and doesn't believe that that's the case, that they've got any people in gay relationships who are experiencing domestic violence, they can come forward. They'll get exactly the same help as everyone else. What I want to say that to those of you who know someone maybe with that opinion is that perception is reality. And they don't feel this way for no reason. And all of the historical discrimination, all of the facts, the things that we've talked about today, and their direct experience create that belief, and not just belief, their experience. We can't tell someone that their feelings and their experiences wrong or not true. So, that's something that we really need to look at. It's one thing to go, well, no, we're here for you too. Well, as the gay community are saying, and David's just saying, well, we don't believe you are, and we don't feel it. And our experiences show that your words do not match up with your actions. So, very important to ask you, what can we do? So that's what I want to ask you, David. What do you, as a victim of narcissistic abuse, coercive control, domestic violence, and as a victim who is a young gay man, what can we as a society do to make it easier for victims to feel not just heard but understood, therefore making it more likely that they will leave an abusive relationship? Because at the moment it seems that gay people have even less chance, gay men in particular, and gay women, less chance of being recognised as a domestic violence victim than any other man. So what can we do to make it easier and to make it more likely that they will believe they will get support and they will be protected and they will get justice, and they won't get their experiences won't be undermined or ridiculed?
I guess the solution might just be sharing more stories, more firsthand experiences, giving visibility to these situations, so that they can be studied and learned from, and shared and used, to help the next person, I guess. And just still on the topic of Jesse and Luke, I know that in the wake of the incident, the media kind of described it as a crime of passion.
Oh.
And I felt that was such a missed opportunity to call it what it is, which is domestic abuse, domestic violence, and potentially it could have opened up, a greater discussion about this and how it varies for queer couples or
I am so glad that you brought that up, David, because I've been thinking that all along. I read that too. A crime of passion. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was another domestic violence, or two domestic violence fatalities, but it wasn't given the same credence. Like that, there was lots of, obviously support and sympathy, but it wasn't recognised as, a true domestic violence relationship that we could analyse, so it never happens to another person, and it was, far from a crime of passion. This was, a loss of. It's really hard to know what to say on these things. Now, these people were unalived, I think they use, so that you don't get your episode thrown off, because someone chose to do that because of who they are, and we need to talk about that so it never ever happens to another young beautiful gay couple. And that, you know, all those things leading up, it could have stopped along the way if Jesse felt like he could have got the support that, because of all the things we've spoken about today, would have been virtually impossible for him.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate, and yeah, something needs to be done. There has to be change.
There absolutely has to be change. We need more education. We need to speak to you. We need to speak to you and everyone in your community. There's no point in telling you that, okay, we've done the right thing, when you are the victims and you're saying, no, you haven't, because we don't feel supported and we don't feel recognized and we don't feel we can come forward and be believed. We need to talk to you. So, yeah, more education, more awareness, and going to the people such as yourself who are enduring it, so that we can, you know, provide more support for you and have more empathy in society for domestic violence victims who are in a non-heterosexual relationship. Yeah. Okay, David, look, I think that's probably a really good start today in, you know, starting to raise awareness for the listeners out there today. I would ask you to share, tag your friends and share the you know what out of this episode, because we need to support people in the gay community, the LGBTQ plus community, to be able to be heard and understood as being a victim of domestic violence. So yeah, please share and talk about, you know, your experience and reach out for support. Okay. All right, David, on that note, I just wanted to thank you so much. I believe that you talking about your abuse and, of course, your thoughts around how we can stop this from, you know, happening again. Of course, what happened to Jesse and Luke, but also to make it easier for gay couples to get help and support, not feel so alone. I really want to thank you, because you are going to help so many people today with your story. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you so much, Nova. It's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode. I really hope that David's story has helped those of you in the LGBTQ plus community to feel validated. Please share this episode. Guys, we really need to create an awareness so that you have a voice and that you feel not just heard, but understood, in that there aren't enough support services that recognize what you have been through, and of course recognize that you don't feel comfortable in coming forward for a very good reason. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel, guys, so you never miss an episode. And please leave a review or a rating. I love hearing your thoughts and getting back to you on the Fake Love and Flying Monkeys discussion group on Facebook. On that note, it's bye from me for now, and always remember, you are worthy of love. You are worthy of so much love, and you are certainly worthy of a whole lot more than a lifetime of fake love and flying monkeys.